What are the responsibilities of being an activist?
Activism is a really broad concept. It's about taking action for what you believe in, and there's no one way to be an activist. In fact, people contribute in loads of different ways, and that's a good thing. You might typically think of an activist as somebody who is standing in the street with a placard, and maybe that's some people, but there's also people who are creating art, who are doing logistics, who are talking to decision makers, who are speaking up in the spaces that they're already in. And we need all of those people. There's no blueprint for being an activist, and we need everybody on board to tackle the climate crisis. Activism is about working together with other people and using your passion, your values, and your skills to make change in the world.
How can we be heard in a responsible way?
The best way to get our voices heard is through collective action by working together to build people power and making sure that our voices are getting heard by the right people. Often to get heard, we need to make waves, we need to get attention, and this often involves being creative and thinking creatively. When we look back at history, at people fighting against different injustices, things like the civil rights movement, LGBT history, even the anti-fracking movement here in the UK, we know that people fighting against injustice have always taken different levels of action to get their voices heard and to create change. We know that asking nicely usually isn't enough. So, work with other people, get creative, and don't be afraid to make waves.
What are the best ways to spread your message and make sure lots of people hear it?
It's not really exciting, but the best way that you can get your message across to people is by talking to them. Talking to people face to face is the most powerful way to engage them in things that you care about. So start with the people that you know, start with your friends, your family, any groups that you're in, whether that's sports groups, faith groups, or your school. Talk to them about the things that you care about, find your people, and work together.
How do you start a campaign, advertise it, and get people interested?
When you're starting a campaign, the most important thing that you can do to start with is be clear on what you're asking for. What exactly are your demands? How will you know that you've won? And once you've decided that, you need to find out who exactly it is that can grant that, who can make it happen, and make a plan on how you're going to get them to do that. Once you've got that all planned out, it is about engaging people, and the best thing is to start with who you know already and work out from there. When you're engaging with new people, it's important to be really clear on what it is that you want them to do. Do you want them to sign a petition, come to a rally, join your group? Be really clear and get people excited for the things that you care about.
How can we amplify the voices of those most affected?
Listen, repeat, act. Start by listening to the voices of the most affected. When it comes to climate change, this is generally people who are from the global south, from countries who have contributed the least to the problem, who are feeling the effects the worst. People who are marginalised in different ways are usually the ones who are the worst affected by climate change. Listen to what they're saying, repeat what they're saying in your own messaging, and act on what they're saying.
How can we best put pressure on the government for real change?
The best way that we can put pressure on our government is through people power, collective action, and making it impossible to ignore our demands.
What would be your suggestions on the first steps forward to improving the world's climate change problems?
The number one most important thing that we can do as a society to tackle the climate crisis is to stop extracting and burning fossil fuels. We live in a society that runs on fossil fuels, so we're going to need change at all levels. This is going to involve reducing consumption and making choices in our lives to reduce demand on fossil fuels. But these choices often aren't affordable and accessible to everybody, so on their own they won't be enough. We can't tell people to cycle if there aren't safe cycle lanes. We can't tell people to take public transport if it just isn't affordable to them. We also know that just 100 companies produce 71% of climate changing emissions. And we know that our government is currently set to approve Cambo, a brand new oil field off the coast of Shetland, even though we know that to have any chance of tackling the climate crisis, we can have no new fossil fuel projects. So we're going to need structural level change to make real impacts. We need change on the government level, on the local government level. We need wide-reaching system change. So when it comes to tackling climate change, look at your own habits and actions, but also think about ways that you can change the world around you for everybody.